Hello, this is Randy. Welcome back to Brain Break with Randy and Keitho. I wanted to touch base with you today about a story that is interesting and still sticks with me. I had the opportunity of having a very, very good friend that was the Elders Quorum president in his ward a number of years ago. I was on the High Council. Oftentimes I would go and help their ward when they had welfare assignments or some kind of work to do. And I really enjoyed that because I enjoyed my friend and his family. In fact, our families were best friends. We had a great time together. But I noticed on these activities that there was always this quiet, sweet man that would do anything. He was older than I was, wasn't very verbal. And finally, I asked my friend about it, the Elders Quorum president, and he told me his name, and he said, "You don't know about him?" I said, "I do not." Well, and every time I'd go to church in their ward, I would see him. It turns out that he had been drafted into the Army, trained for whatever position it was, I don't remember, and then had been catastrophically wounded. He had part of his brain blown away. They put a metal plate in his head. And he came home and he got a disability pension from the VA. He helped his mom, who was still alive. I'm sure she helped him. But whenever there was an activity where something needed to be done, this kind man showed up. If it was something like digging a hole, hauling bricks, unloading a truck, he was always the very first one there. Before you could even finish talking about it, he was there. He brought his work gloves and he worked very hard. He got to the point where he knew me well enough that he would allow me to talk and joke with him. But again, he wasn't very verbal. I think he knew because of his brain damage, he was simpler than he had been. But the word I've always used when I've always thought about him was not that he was simple, but that he was sweet. And I was honored to know him. I won't tell you that I kept up with him. I haven't. But I was sure grateful that I got a chance to know him and to see his sweet spirit. He would, as his mother aged, he would bring her to church and care for her. I don't know what happened to him when his mother passed, because I think he needed some help. But he was sure a wonderful man. I'm grateful that he didn't perish in Vietnam. My son was in the Marine Corps. As he put it, some of the very best did perish. While he was wounded 3 times, he refused to accept any Purple Hearts because he figured his wounds were pretty minor compared to his friends that perished. I'm proud of him for having those feelings. I'm not sure it was the wisest thing to do, especially where he became disabled himself, because the Purple Hearts would have added to the income he gets. But he turned them down and he was fine with that. My son is an amazing man, but he's also very verbal. He makes his mind up. He's going to tell you what his mind is made up on. But I have learned so much from watching my son and my daughters interact with those that are differently abled. My youngest daughter has taught her children that, and I know my son has as well, that if somebody is hanging back, they will go out to them. If they're in a wheelchair, they want to push the wheelchair for them and help them. They want them to be part of the group. They're both very inclusive. My oldest daughter has done the same. It's amazing to see how much her children, and she's a school teacher, and how much the children she teaches love her. She's incredible. I think I may have said it before, but people will compliment my wife and I on what incredible parents our children are. I say, well, it must be from her, because it certainly wasn't from me. But I'm grateful that people would think I had something to do with it. But in all honesty, it's really the fact that they are such good people. I'm glad they are. And I've had opportunities to serve those that are differently abled. And as somebody who is disabled, I may not look it, but I'm actually disabled in more than one way. I find it hard to accept service, but for years I gave service. And so sometimes there are just things I can't do any longer, and I have to accept that service. I do it gratefully and humbly. Don't ever tell yourself you're never going to be in that position, because that's probably not true. I never thought it would happen to me. I'm still working because I didn't enjoy retirement, and I enjoy doing things, and I still have as much time as my grandkids need and my wife needs. So my wife gets a lot more vacation than I do. But again, please be kind to those that are differently abled. Look to include them. love them and keep them as part of your group. Be inclusive, not exclusive. We lived in a ward where we loved everybody, but they were so surrounded by their large families that it was hard to have any personal time with them other than at a church activity or a neighborhood activity. I'm not saying family time isn't important, but friend time is important too. I would encourage you to play games, see movies, eat dinner with your friends. And it was amazing. My wife's grandmother, she lived for her family and she went to the temple, and that was it. Those were the two things she did. She was amazing. The stake president's wife, a wonderful lady. But her other grandparents have always had a personal life beyond their children, and they've had a great group of friends. All I can say is they lived fuller lives. They both ended up dying of cancer of one type or another at an older age. It was wonderful to know and to love them. My wife's grandmother on her mother's side didn't want a funeral. She wanted a party where her grandchildren got together, talked about the fun stuff, and to play games and sing, do the things we did as a family. I thought that was pretty incredible. I'm grateful that I had the example of these wonderful people in my life. Grateful that my wife married me and has stayed married to me. So again, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful evening or day whenever you're listening to this. And I hope this has maybe given you something to think about, because I promise you that these people that are differently abled, they are lonely in a way we don't always see. Ashton Kutcher has I believe it's a twin that is differently abled. And he is so proud of that brother. I'm grateful for that example. I've never had that experience. Luckily, none of our children have had that experience yet, and I hope they don't, or grandchildren. But I have seen the pain as a teacher when someone knows that they're not the same as everybody else, and they start catching on really early. It's hurtful to them. They need people to love and support them. So again, thank you for joining me for Brain Break with Randy and Keitho. Please like and subscribe. I love your comments. We will see you in the next episode. Have a great one. Bye now.